Maybe we need people like Senator Malcolm Roberts in positions of greater power. Malcolm's with us on the program. Hello, mate. How are you?
I'm well, thanks, Marcus. How are you?
I'm pissed off.
Oh,
Really?
no, you're cranky and frustrated. I just heard you say
really
that.
annoyed.
You should be too.
I'm really, really annoyed. Anyway, let's get to some of the issues. I'm sorry, but did you just hear what Premier Annastacia Palaszczuk said there?
Yeah, I did. And what she's doing is just playing the Queensland card. Queenslanders are very proud to be Queenslanders, but we're also proud to be Australians. And Palaszczuk is running off the old trick of just trying to isolate. And that's what a desperate leader does. They try and build a circle around themselves, and everyone outside is bad. And that's what she's doing. But she's actually misrepresenting the situation. We've got 2 tertiary care hospitals in Queensland. We've got a couple in Brisbane, and we've got 1 centre in Townsville. Now, the Townsville looks after all the way from Townsville right through to Papua New Guinea, looks way out into the east, into the islands, looks way west into the Northern Territory, and south to about central Queensland. The Queensland, the hospitals around Brisbane, they take care of central Queensland,
Yep.
north of the hospitals, and south of the hospitals into northern New South Wales. That's our responsibility. We get paid federal money for doing that. And Annastacia Palaszczuk is misrepresenting the truth. She has actually now realised, people are starting to wake up, Marcus. She has stopped 2 twins in birth, in the womb, from coming to Brisbane for treatment. That mother would have had a helicopter flight in half an hour to the hospital. Instead, she took 16 hours to get to on a Royal Flying Doctor Service plane to Princess Alexandra.
Why is it you can say all of this, Malcolm, but we've got a Prime Minister who says stuff all? Does nothing, says nothing to call this woman out, says nothing about what's going on with the border debacle.
Well, I believe we have a Prime Minister who's doing a marketing job. And Scott Morrison is very much in favour of building facades and then selling them. Look, he's caused a real problem with this cabinet, this so-called cabinet that he's established. I believe that one of the motives for that cabinet was to pull people together. That's good. But the other motive was, if it went pear-shaped with the response, he would have had the cabinet to blame. And so what we've now got is we've got rampant premiers in Dan Andrews not fulfilling his responsibilities, Annastacia Palaszczuk not fulfilling her responsibilities to the country and to Queensland, and harming both those states. And who pays, mate? The Prime Minister pays, the taxpayer pays. So when Victoria has a sloppy response and goes and has more cases of COVID and has to shut down to stage 4, who pays the bill for the extra JobKeeper, the extra job seeker?
Well,
the federal government does.
Yes.
So what we've got now is the complete reversal of our constitution, which is based on competitive federalism, and we've got competitive welfareism. The more the Queensland and Victorian governments fail, the more money they'll get. It's ridiculous.
All right. Look, again, I don't understand why he's so quiet on this. And look, I know the way the system works. I get it. But I'm sorry. You're right. He's just hiding behind marketing slogans. He thought he hit a home run yesterday with this announcement, this grandised announcement of vaccines. And then he tripped over the words when he went down the whole mandatory line.
This is just a repeat of what happened
to backtrack.
This is just a repeat of what happened with the COVID tracking app. You know, he came out and 3 times he refused to rule out that it would be compulsory. So I jumped in on a radio station and said, no, we are not going to support it if it's compulsory. Just not. You can't do that. He was very quickly backtracking as soon as that happened. Now, Pauline did the same with this declaration of compulsory vaccines, and she belted him, and he quickly retreated. He doesn't stand for anything, and that means he'll fall for anything. And that's Scott Morrison summarised in a nutshell. But that's typical of the Liberal and Labor parties these days. They don't stand for anything, and they fall for anything.
All right, what about compulsory superannuation? This 50-year experiment continues. We're now 30 years into the super experiment. And without getting bogged down in any of the financial detail, is it working, and can we afford the increase the government has promised, Malcolm?
Well, you know, the Reserve Bank governor has come out and said that raising super would reduce wage growth and spending. And he's right, because what people fail to realise is that super has to be paid from somewhere. The extra super contribution has to come from somewhere. And it comes out of an employer's revenue.
Yep.
And so that the employer then has less opportunity, less affordability to give wage increases in the future. So the money doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes out of it goes either into super or it goes into increased wages. Take your pick, Marcus. And so the Reserve Bank governor is sensible in saying that. I'm saying that we need to really consider this and have a good look at it, because the contribution from super, the tax concessions on super fund earnings is now costing us $38 billion a year.
Yeah.
The cost in saved pensions is only $8 billion a year. That means there's $30 billion being transferred somewhere else, and we know that it goes to the banks and the super funds in fees.
Of course it does.
So this means that what's happening is that the rate we're going, the return to members would be below the projected return if it were not for taxation concessions. So we really have to think about what we're doing with super, and we have to stop making it increasingly complex. We have to really look at it in a solid way, and then come back to having a solid strategy on super and stop changing it all the time.
Yeah. I mean, if business is forced to increase super in order to survive, then unfortunately they may just take that out of wages. We know that real wage growth is basically flatlined over the years. And they can't probably afford, given the fact that we'll be in hopefully a recovery phase by then with COVID-19, with all borders open and all economies chugging away. So while business survives, perhaps of individuals, if you like, may be worse off. I mean, I don't know whether the economy can sustain a rise in compulsory superannuation.
Well, you're absolutely correct. And it points to not only the confusion and the concern that people have with continual meddling with the super, but also it points to what we discussed last week and the week before, Marcus, and that is that our economy has been debilitated from about 1923 onwards, and then especially from 1944 onwards, signing the Lima Agreement, the Paris Agreement, the Kyoto Protocol, and all these things that have destroyed our economic sovereignty, our economic sustainability. And then we've had a reduced economy now, and even before COVID, it was floundering. So as a result of COVID, it's collapsed. What we need to do when Morrison and Albanese are talking about lifting the economy back to where it was, we don't need to think about February this year, Marcus. We need to think about getting back to being number one in the world, which is where we were in the early part of last century, right through to 1920. We had the number one income per capita in the world. And that's what we need to get back to. And what's happened is that the Liberal Labor policies of pushing UN policies has failed. And we need to get back to really aiming for being top of the world again. We've got the people, we've got the resources, we've got the climate, we've got the opportunities and the potential. We've just got wombats running the show in Canberra. And that's what we need to change.
All right, good to have you on the program as always, Malcolm. Calling a shovel a bloody spade. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you.